Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zaki and today we're doing another Valorant video talking about Valorant and Counter-Strike. We have a lot to talk about here. I was going to put a lot of this on Valorant Hub, but I realized that Valorant Hub is a news and information source, and I really want this to be more of my opinion pieces because the reality is that Valorant Hub I don't think is as welcoming regarding the audience for these sorts of opinions. So let's jump into it. Today we're going to be talking about CS Valorant because the War Owl, who is of course a prominent YouTuber, has spoken about how Valorant has fixed everything about CS. Also, at least the title is Valorant fixed everything wrong with Counter-Strike. I want to go through this because as someone who has been with Valorant since the very beginning, and obviously with my channel Valorant Hub, I see Valorant through maybe a slightly different lens, but I also understand what he's saying. Without further ado though, I want to jump into the War Owl's video talking about this and give my own take on it.
Quick, what is the main problem with Counter-Strike? You said cheating, and you'd be right. This is one of the main issues that the Valorant developers sat down and tried to fix. I think it goes much, much deeper than that. This is the Valorant fixed Counter-Strike iceberg. Greetings, hi, the War Owl greets you. I think the Valorant developers sat down, looked at Counter-Strike, specifically Counter-Strike 1.6, and said, what are the flaws? Made a list, and then took their time fixing them and innovating the genre, and I think this is only good for people who like to play Valorant, for people who like to play Counter-Strike, for people who like to play, I don't know, Rainbow Six Siege. I know you're out there. Randomness is a really annoying addition to a skill-based shooter. This ain't no card game, we're not calculating the odds here. In FPS, the better player is the one who clicks on the other guy first, using skill and cunning. In Counter-Strike, a huge contributor to RNG is random spawn placement. The entire flow of the early game is governed by meeting point timings. Valorant fixed this by adding the spawn walls. You can pretty much choose anywhere on your side of the map to spawn, making them.
So already this is actually getting really interesting to me on the basis that I was not a Counter-Strike player. I went into Valorant only, and I'll be very clear about this. There'll be a lot of sort of raw truths on this channel that you don't necessarily get to see on Valorant Hub. The reason why I jumped into Valorant when it launched was simply because it was a new IP that Riot started, and because I could see that there was some real hype behind it from Project A days over to Twitch, then having the beta drops and all that stuff. That is why I got into it. The gameplay looked decent, looked okay, people seemed to be very excited. All I care about with this stuff is what the market is saying. Continuing on from War Owl's video though.
Meeting points consistent every.
Because the War Owl has will have a different take on Valorant because they come from Counter-Strike. Clearly, they're talking about CS 1.6. They've been on here for a while.
Single round and not giving advantage based on a random number generator. Also, it turns the freeze time into something where the player has autonomy instead of just standing there frozen in space. It also means players are immediately thrust into the action right after the freeze time ends, since the new meeting points are like 1 or 2 seconds. During freeze time in Counter-Strike, it's usually a cluster. You gotta decide who buys for who, drop the right weapons, pass them across, hope they can reach them, plan out your strategy, and if you falter by a second, you'll miss your timing. And if you miss by the wrong gun, too bad. Your team's economy is screwed.
I heard about this.
People will yell at you in a language you do not recognize. How many times have you miscalculated and ended up with an extra AK-47 sitting on the ground? Ask yourself, does this make the gameplay better? Valorant fixes this too by allowing players to buy for other players anywhere on the map, and you can specifically request an item for them to buy you, and you can sell a weapon back if you miss buying.
This is really interesting.
Valorant fixed pretty much every problem with Counter-Strike. They introduced even more problems. I mean, they introduced new innovations to the genre. Why, the pinging on the map system is brilliant. I bet you forgot CSGO even had pinging. I feel like the pinging in Counter-Strike is more for Danger Zone. I think that every tactical shooter going forward should have pinging on the minimap. It helps with communication big time, instead of calling a vague position name. That
see, what I was talking about here now is starting to make me think, I'm so glad I didn't get into CS in a way, because whilst I would be way more cracked at Valorant than I am now, which to be clear, I'm a noob, it sounds like CS is literally lacking and has been lacking over a decade's worth of gaming innovation since its launch, because what we're talking about here I thought was a given. Pings on the map, like Fortnite introduced that like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Like, and that, I'm not saying Fortnite's the innovator there, I'm saying that this has been going on before. So we're really asking for the bare minimum here, if I'm honest.
Agree on, and my teammates will probably just ignore. I can just click where the enemy is to let them know, or I can click where I want to let them know I'm gonna smoke, or I can click where I want to let them know to do the thingy with the thingy. This helps with people who don't use voice chat. This helps with people who don't speak the same language. This helps with people who do speak the same language. In Global Offensive, the ranking system is enigmatic. It's a mystery. From experiments, we can tell that it factors in round wins more than anything else, and uses a modified Glico 2 system.
Hold up, is that the actual rank system? Crikey. Okay, they don't have a marketing, they do have a marketing team, I guess, but this is not good. This is terrible for marketing. This is terrible for accessibility, therefore for marketing. Legendary Eagle Master, Supreme Master First. Stop giving us more work. Distinguished Master Guardian. Why would you do that? Okay, I'm starting to appreciate Valorant's rank system more now.
In round wins more than anything else, and uses a modified Glico 2 system. Valorant was like, nah, you win, you get points. You lose points. You get 100 points, you rank up. You play good, you get more points. You play like crap, you don't get as many points. It also doesn't seem to dramatically penalize you for taking a break from the game like Counter-Strike does. With Glico 2, to optimize ranking up, you need to play consistently, but not all at the same time. So playing once a day for 2 weeks is much better for ranking up than playing 14 games in a day and then waiting 2 weeks. If you play them all at the same time, they're worth less. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying one is more transparent than the other. The Valorant devs are also very smart and handsome and definitely don't collect your data and are good at their jobs. Alright, I only have about 20 seconds before they send another one of them things. Valorant isn't perfect, it's got problems. I still enjoy playing Counter-Strike. There's lots of the modding stuff that goes on in Counter-Strike, custom servers, you got the replay systems. But that's not the point of the video. The point is that the devs looked at all of these things, they innovated, they tried to improve, they iterated, and that is only good for people who like tactical shooters, which is me, and I think you. Global Offensive has a huge barrier to entry in utility. To play well at all, you have to learn countless smoke lineups, pop flashes, Molotov positions. It makes learning the game kind of a pain in the ass. If I don't regularly drill my smokes, I will forget them, and you can lose an entire round if your smoke is even slightly off. I know, because I have. Valorant fixed this by having some agents requiring complicated lineups and others not so much. If I want to spend 30 minutes every day of my life drilling lineups, I can play Sova, but
So what I was talking about here, and this is incredibly important in gaming as well, is accessibility. And this is something that Valorant actually, and we'll talk about this a bit later in this video maybe, lacks in a lot in some ways. I'm finding myself in a really weird spot right now because like Valorant is yes ahead of a game that like just sucks ass really for like the time it is, and I'm gonna say that it sucks ass for the time it is, but it's also not innovating in the way that games can.
Grown man who doesn't play Valorant full-time. I'm more of a Counter-Strike guy. So if I
to be very clear, by the way, when I say CS sucks ass, I'm not talking about from your favorite game perspective. If it's your favorite game, that is amazing, and I'm so happy for you that you have something that you can enjoy like that. I never give a crap about people's preferences. The preferences is absolutely fine, to be very clear. I'm talking about what is market valued features and innovations that do and don't happen between different games. Very different. I'm talking objectively, not subjectively here.
And play the game and click on people and still play at a higher level, I can play Reyna. I'd say overall, the utility in Valorant is much more fun to use than Counter-Strike. To smoke, you just click where you want it to go. In Counter-Strike, you gotta do this. Ask yourself, does this make the gameplay better? Cheating is objectively the worst problem with Global Offensive. It makes the game unplayable in matchmaking. Valorant removed the incentive to wall hack by making it a gameplay feature. There is still cheating in Valorant. There's going to be cheating in any game, but it's much less of a problem than other games because of the incredibly intrusive and possibly dangerous anti-cheat system Vanguard. I've only come across 3 or 4 cheaters my entire time playing Valorant. Were I to queue with my solo queue account in Global Offensive, I'd get 3 or 4 64 cheaters a match. You wonder why Solo Queue to Global stopped. Valorant also has 100.
So that tells me why Riot made a whole anti-cheat for Valorant, because they actually have their own proprietary system, don't they, called Vanguard, right? Now they could have easily, and they've done this to a certain extent already with part of the game, they could have just rented out the Epic Games' stuff, realistically, right? What I'm talking about there, Valorant runs on Unreal Engine, which of course is Epic Games' proprietary engine, right? Now, on the other hand, when it comes to anti-cheat, Epic Games, I believe, owns Easy Anti-Cheat, which I also think Apex also uses, right? Valorant, of course, have their own Vanguard anti-cheat, which they have made specifically for Valorant, which I assume based on what War Owl was saying, because I was not aware of how bad the cheating problem is in CS because I didn't play it that much. It seems that Riot have had a handle, and essentially, as War Owl says, has innovated past the sucky game already. Like, they've innovated past a game that is a decade old. Brilliant. What about 2021? That's just
matchmaking.
Yeah.
But only 73 packets per second update rate. Shh, don't tell nobody. They don't want you to know that.
And better netcode overall than Global Offensive. Whatever you think about either game, getting a match in Counter-Strike is a pain in the ass. To get anti-cheat in 128-tick servers, I need to use a third-party system. In Valorant, I press the button, and bam, I'm playing the game.
Well, actually, Mr. War Owl, you've fallen for the placebo effect. There's no difference between 64-tick and 128-tick.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, wrong.
Okay, so I know who talks into the camera. I fully feel what he's doing here, but after doing it, like, I did after you're like in that moment of like performing for the camera, you're like, what am I doing? And to be fair, I'm respecting what he's doing there. I'm not like criticizing.
Wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong.
Because when you're doing it in a totally otherwise quiet environment and you're like singing wrong, 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 afterwards you're like, the things I do for YouTube, like, I swear. I mean, War Out might not be like that, but I definitely am.
Wrong. I mean, you are wrong. Valorant's innovation has even influenced the design of Counter-Strike. When you play Valorant, your eyes burn and your brain dies because you have to see the horribly designed, embarrassing crosshairs of your teammates. Bam! New update. Counter-Strike got that. This is how Counter-Strike got to where it is today. It has been refined through natural selection over 2 decades. Originally created as a mod of Half-Life, the maps have evolved, the mechanics have evolved, the rules have evolved to the point where it is now a beautiful game. But let's not get stuck like we did with CS 1.6. Do you remember when Counter-Strike was in beta and everybody was like, no, CS 1.6 is the only Counter-Strike. It will be around forever, for generations to... Yeah, it didn't happen that way, did it? There's always room for innovation and improvement, and Valorant is the perfect opportunity for that. And I'll give you this warning. If Counter-Strike doesn't evolve, it'll get devoured. And pretty much already has in North America. What Valorant can't bring over from Counter-Strike, they can't iterate or improve on, is the history, the heart, the soul of the game, which is creation by community. Valorant, after over a year, doesn't even have a replay system. They don't have community servers. They don't have community content. They don't have maps. They don't even have iteration on the maps. I'm convinced that the devs, the smart guys who make the game, probably had to pull teeth to get Riot to include a voice chat system. Counter-Strike is a grape. Rainbow Six Siege is raisin. Valorant is purple flavor. I want wine. Thank you folks very much for watching.
Okay, awesome. So something actually he brought up around this mark.
But let's not get stuck like we did with CS 1.6. Do you remember when Counter-Strike was in beta and everybody was like, no, generations to... Yeah, it didn't happen that way, did it? There's always room for innovation and improvement, and Valorant is the perfect opportunity for that.
Perfect. The sentence that he just said there, pardon me, Valorant is the perfect opportunity for that. It is, but it's also every single day being screwed up. And I'm going to explain that because I have nothing against the devs. The devs always try and do their best. I know how they pour their love, their passion, their heart into this game. I know that. I've spoken with a number of them. I see what they're saying. I follow most of the devs at this point on Twitter. I know what they at least put out there. I'm not saying I know what they're thinking, but I know what they put out there. I know roughly how hard they work, which is a lot, to be very clear. But let me say this as well. Whilst all of that is true, two things can be true, right? And the reality is that the way that Valorant is right now means that if another company, Epic Games, who likes to make new games and essentially overtake other games because they have the tech to do so and they have the foundation to do so as well, Valorant would get destroyed, in my opinion, by any Epic Games clone of it, because Epic Games puts out content, and content is king or queen, whatever. YouTube, it's the same thing. It's because we're both doing live services here. The reason why a lot of YouTubers, not every, but a lot of YouTubers will post every single day is because they need to provide a live service. They won't always say that, and sometimes people don't even know that it's necessarily that's how it works in those terms. People just know I should upload daily if I can, right? The reason for that is that you need to be at the forefront of the consumer's attention as much as possible. It's why I personally have many and multiple YouTube channels, because I don't like being on one thing only. I like being able to bring as many people over from as many different communities into different channels and to have a chat and have, you know, break news to them, etc. What I'm getting at with Valorant, what they really built on, and it did really well at the start, and this is why most CS, Overwatch, and Rainbow Six pros left their games that they'd spent their entire career working on to pursue Valorant before it even launched, is because the trailer and Riot. Riot has a track record with League of Legends, and that is because they innovated over a decade with that MOBA, of course, with doing lore cinematics, with bringing out constant updates, with doing dev communication. Now, I'm not saying League is perfect. I personally didn't play League, but I know that it's really the biggest MOBA in the world, and so therefore something was done correctly. But League is getting a different treatment to Valorant, and that makes sense because Valorant has only been out for a year, but the difference and comparison at the moment does not work out. What I'm getting at there is that Valorant started off with trailers, with creative, and creative is king. Creative and marketing is what gets people playing the game, and that is what Fortnite mastered so successfully well. But what's happening now is Valorant have brought in this player base. They've essentially shit on CS, and that is great by all means for Riot, and that will continue for a while, as CS took literally about a decade to be overtaken by one game that just, like, it didn't even take more than one game to try it. The first game that tried to take the dinosaur out did the dinosaur out. But Valorant is at risk right now, in my opinion, of becoming that dinosaur. What's happening right now is we started off with the lore trailers, and now where we're going with it, it's essentially a case of we're not seeing any lore, or at least very little. I say this as a lore YouTuber. I know what's going on. I've spoken with the creative team doing roundtables. Well, one roundtable. They're amazing, but I don't think that Riot's investing enough into the game. And what I'm saying there is nothing to do with the devs. The creative director, the writers, the engineers, all of them I'm sure are doing great work. But whoever's making the decision making, and there's a long list of things that they need to work on, needs to get this down. Because right now, Valorant, if you have a look at the data, and I'll show that at some point because it's a long enough video anyway, I will go through charts and graphs that I have access to, and anyone has access to be fair, as a marketer though, that I'm aware of, that most of you probably won't be aware of, that shows us that Valorant has plateaued in interest. And here's another bite before I end it there, because I want to make another video about this at some other point, and it's really a long video. Valorant, when it launched, had the most interest it's ever had ever. Since then, it barely manages to reach 50% of the same interest level online through Google products. That means Google search, which is where everyone downloads Valorant from, and YouTube search and YouTube videos. It has plateaued since the start. Games are meant to go up, not down. With that being said, I hope Riot figures this out soon. We're going to make more videos about this. There's so many things to go over. War Hour just gave us the perfect foundation to start it with. If this video was interesting or helpful to you in any way, shape or form, a like is always much appreciated. And if you would like to be kept today happening in this scene every single day, and most on today, this is my channel, and I keep everything on every single day. So if you want to be up to happening, hit that subscribe button and keep notifications on. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.